Today on Perpetual Projects, we are going to lift this RamCharger. I don't want to say not the right way, not the conventional way. So it was brought to my attention that it looks really, really tall right now, but it's not. We're adding 2 inches of tire, so that's an inch on the bottom, inch on the top. And then I'm thinking roughly like a 3-inch lift kit should get us there. It may not end up completely all the way this tall. This is a kind of a temporary but safe solution so that Amber can drive this back to Alabama. You might be asking yourself, why didn't we just take the lift kit off of this RamCharger and put it on that one? Well, I just don't think that that's a good way to do it. That's actually what we're trying to avoid doing. Let's see how it turns out. So if you look at this, you can see that this, even with the weight of the axle hanging on them, these leaf springs are really flat. And that's kind of a normal thing for the front of these trucks. So what we're gonna do is we're gonna rebuild that leaf spring pack. We're gonna use the original top leaf because it mounts into the ends, the perches. We've got a stack of parts over here. Let's go look. These are all leaf springs out of the back of a 3/4 ton Dodge pickup that was wrecked. And it's actually the one that axle, the bent axle there, and that broken front axle came out of. So what we're gonna do is we're gonna figure out, we might add 1 leaf, but we're gonna take all the flat leaves out of that leaf spring pack and put these arched leaves in there. And I'm hoping that's gonna get us around a 2, maybe 3-inch lift kit. Okay, I went ahead and got all that other stuff out of the way so I can show you what we're gonna do here. So all we're gonna do is basically, like we did on the red truck, our extra parts truck, and rebuild this leaf spring pack. The things that we gotta be careful of. On this rear end, the inner bolt is studs that go into the actual housing of the rear end, so you can't increase the thickness of this by very much, or you have to find longer studs, and we don't have enough time to try to get those out because we need to leave for Alabama hopefully within the next 2 weeks. So we're just gonna limit ourselves to what this thickness is, possibly about a 1/4 inch thicker. There was enough nut or thread sticking out of the nut when I took those off to add a little bit of extra thickness here, but not a lot. So I started by measuring this, and it's 1.3 roughly, so 1.25 inches. So as long as we end up 1.5 inches or less, we should be okay. So I'm gonna go ahead and take the centering bolts out, and you're gonna have to replace those. They're not gonna survive. What we're using is just grade 8 centering bolts, grade 8 bolts that I made a centering bolt out of. Yeah, so let's get this apart and I'll show you what it looks like when we put it back together.
Show what you mean by made a centering bolt out of.
So it's just a grade 8 bolt that's the right length, and let's go over here. So these have to fit inside here, and with a regular head on them they won't fit. They're just 3/8 bolts, they're grade 8. I got a nylock on there. All this does is keep the leaf spring pack together, and it actually does more than you think. Even with all this clamped down, I have seen centering bolts break and leaf springs shift and axles move. So that's why we're using grade 8, and they just made it fit down in there.
You just ground it down?
I just ground the points off. So it was 9/16 hex head, now it's round to fit in there. So here I'm just using vice grips to hold the centering bolt because, again, remember, round head on the bottom, can't put a wrench on it. And I actually think this one might come out in one piece and be reusable, which if we can, we'll reuse the proper ones. Okay, so our centering bolt isn't long enough to get this together with the arch. So we got some really long zip ties here, and we're going to see if we can drop all these springs on the ground. We'll put them on that way. It'll lower it. Okay, so what we have to do is turn this over. Get it somewhat lined up. This thing's probably gonna ride really bad, Amber. We're adding a lot of spring rate to the front end of this truck.
Could you just use the C-clamp at this point, or is that not enough?
probably could, but I need to make sure that everything stays lined up in here. Okay. Yeah, this thing's gonna ride like a lumber wagon.
Worse than the Jeep?
I don't know, we'll see. So this is working, and the way you can tell that is it's pulling this spring down. It's not flattening these springs out. So we are going to get our desired result. The unintended side effect might be zero suspension in the front of this RamCharger. We'll just have to see.
Is this right here with the C-clamp and the zip ties while we're calling this a Redneck lift kit?
No, we're calling this a Redneck lift kit because really the proper way to do this is just to buy springs, but we don't know where we're going with this RamCharger. And so I don't want to spend money on it just to be able to drive it to Alabama. And you might be wondering, well, why are you lifting it? Well, I'm lifting it because I got a really good deal on 33-inch tires, and I already had a lift kit in the back, and this is less expensive than buying new tires. Cut off your nose to spite your face, I think. What do you think we ended up?
1.52.
What did I say it could be?
1.51?
I'm pretty sure I said 1.5, and we ended up
It'll work.
pretty close.
So now we just put everything back together?
No, now we do the other side. We're done. Give us 2 seconds. We'll show you what it looks like and see how we did, if we got enough lift or not. There you go, it's lifted. Still maybe not quite enough. We actually probably needed about another inch if we have to. This is gonna be a rock crawler. Sawzall, plenty of tire clearance. If you guys like things like this, like just using stuff you find laying around in the yard to make your goals happen, subscribe, because that's what we like to do. We like to do as much as we can with as little as we have to. We're not afraid to spend money when we need to, but if we can use something that we already have and make it work and do it safely, we're all about that. See you soon.